Hey, good morning, everyone. Okay, I am obviously glowing. Kiddada Grey, conflict coach here, CEO of Transform Living, and I promise you today is the morning of technical difficulties all around the world. But good morning. So we are about 17 minutes late. That's all good though. Patience is a virtue that God is still working on me with 48 years of life here. So, good morning, good morning, good morning. We have not seen each other since I think before Thanksgiving. So, I hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving with your family. Mine was super quiet. Just Zora and I were hanging out, sleeping, like I love to do, and sending greetings to all the friends. And speaking of Zora, because she was kind of naughty the last time, she's in her crate this morning. But let's catch up real quick. So we have had some interesting news because remember the first show, we actually discussed just a little bit and we'll continue to do so. We have had like some stuff in the news that has given me hope, that has made me a little sad. So let's talk about that because everything in the news actually is a reflection of life. It is embedded in our lives, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So first and foremost, we've had peace talks in a certain part of the world, and that's how I'm going to say it. I'm going to be generic. You all know what I'm talking about, but that's been hopeful. I have really enjoyed seeing the news reporters actually seem to recognize that there's two parties in this dance of war, and both sides are losing people, losing children, and there is a real sentiment of unhappiness. And it's scary. War is scary. And we are blessed in the United States not to have seen war since the Civil War, actually, on our land here. So we've had hostages. Have been released. So family members are coming home. And then, in the space of that too, we've had just real sadness because the death toll is increasing. I want to challenge you to say, turn off the TV. Don't keep watching it because it is, and it will dampen your spirit, make you angry, and a whole range of emotions. But I also will say it's hard to live in the space of neutrality. Because just like when we have family members at dinner that's fighting and then they put you in it, the news is putting us in it and we are choosing sides. We are losing friends. Some of us are losing jobs. We've got college students that are losing opportunities, college professors being put out of their jobs. People are losing their jobs in the space of, guess what? Free speech. Free speech doesn't seem free anymore. That's a discussion for another day. So I just want to put that out there. That has been something interesting to watch. But I know when it comes to us utilizing our voices, it's imperative that we do so. And also be prepared for the consequences. Like I have to be prepared for the consequences of the things that I say. You all know that I'm in the social justice world, the political space, and I'm sure I have pissed somebody off somewhere in the state of Georgia or wherever else I'm listened to and heard. I am super excited though, as we are moving. We've just had some like really strange stuff. Like I found out, and news is news. And so I found out, did y'all know like y'all supposed to wash your Christmas tree? Like if you have like a plastic one or whatever, did y'all know y'all supposed to wash the Christmas tree? I did not know that. I'm like, that's weird. We got people, TikTok world, people are putting their Christmas tree in the bathtubs and spraying them down with Lysol and whatever else. It's just a wild world that we live in. Just just kind of wild. I do want to say this, though. As we are walking, crawling into 2024, people are extremely tired. People are sad. People are carrying this weight on their shoulders because we have inflation, we have job losses, we have wars, we have deaths, we have, you name it, everything in life is falling on us and we are carrying it on our shoulders. And I know, like, I get all of my stress is in my shoulders. So I get a lot of massages, but I carry it. The weight of the world is in my spirit. And so, with that being said, we've got to learn how to unbundle, take those things off the shoulders. And I have to do that too, right? 2024, I'm not a big fan of, oh my God, 2024, new you, new year, that kind of concept, because every day it starts now. It starts today, because we need a breath. And last week we were talking about like tapping and breathing to get us steady, to get us centered. And so I want to talk about really quickly, like one of the things that you can do, and I apologize because every time I move, my computer shifts with lighting. So I don't know, but can you all see, like I have desk from Kiddada. I have a notebook here. And one of the things that I'm working on is what I am working on. You probably can't see it, but what I'm working on for 2024, I didn't start January. Like I'm starting now because some of my things, and I've got 13 things that I'm working on. I suggest your action item for today is, guess what? I need you all to write down 13 things to work on in 2024. So, and to give you an example, like some things are already in progress. Like I am going to Tokyo in Thailand in April for my 49th birthday with the best chica on the planet and my best friends. So I'm super excited about that. But I also have like classes that I need to take, certifications I need to get done. So I'm trying to hit everything, my travel, my business life, my personal development. I'm also working on my personal life, but we ain't gonna talk about that today because that's a little messy. But it's needed. So when you can manifest what it is that you're going into 2024 about, let's go ahead and do that because there's a why to all this, a why. And we need to know our whys. 7 years ago, my daughter, who is in high school, now she's a grown chica, asked me, you know, like, Mom, what can I do to make my life a little better? Like, how do I kind of walk on this earth and do things that's helpful? And I was like, well, that's interesting because she was getting ready to enter into college, coming out of high school. And the first thing that I said to her was like, you know, you need to be reflective. And you saying that to an 18-year-old, they haven't really lived a lot of life, but it was reflection. So that way you can get to your why. And today I have on someone that is awesome to me, a good friend of mine, a business partner, who is in the space of living your why. Because I promise you, your stream of thinking of whys actually lead you to your purpose. I just want to say that again. Your streams of why lead you to your purpose. And that is amazing. But you've got to be reflective on the why. I know people tend to ask what first. I ask why, because in your reflection moments, you actually get to understand your livelihood, right? Why do I do the things that I do? Because I promise you, your why is going to lead you to your what. I know that I am a big proponent of activism. And if you knew my life story, you'd understand. But I have seen violence, had violence acted upon me, and I knew way back when that I was going to want to protect people and be an activist. My stream of why has gone through so many different iterations, including job descriptions, right? My jobs. What do I do? So, your first action item is create your why. Why? So, in a few, we are going to bring on Kevin Myles. Some of you all know him. He is known around the world. Um, he is known around the world. And when we come back, we're going to run the intro and you will meet him. And I'm going to tell you all his business. And then I'm going to talk about why I'm wearing my dopeness t-shirt, because I'm going to make him do something that he's not prepared for. All right, let's run the intro.
Welcome to Life Coaching Today Presents, hosted by Kiddada Grey.
Hey, I'm back. Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for being up with me early this morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, I see you've got a lot of stuff on the walls.
Yes.
But as usual. So you guys, full disclosure, I'm going to tease him a lot. We are super duper good friends. And like I said, we are business partners. And so we work together a lot in the streets. But I wanted to have Kevin Myles on today because I think I called him the Transformational Change Chameleon because he has actually understood his why from way back. And there's a stream of the foundation of his why through everything that he's done. And so I will talk about that, but I want to give you some fascinating titles that he holds. Like, he is a Mensa member, and I was going to try and get my dictionary off the shelf because sometimes he uses big words trying to be fancy. And I don't know many Black folks that's in Mensa, but he's got a whole Mensa story. He has, he's a veteran. So unfortunately and fortunately, he has served in battle. Thank you for your service. He understands what war looks like and does on the psyche. We could talk just based on all his titles. I promise you, we could have different conversations. He was the national training director for the national NAACP. And he has a civil rights, social justice, community organizing framework foundation that I'm telling you, everybody knows this man. And I am humbled. And then the last thing, he is the founder and CEO, because he moved into the entrepreneur space too, of Community First. So yeah, see that in the back, Community First. And then he has a secret life, y'all, that if y'all are on here and because I'm looking like a bebop girl this morning. I got the lip gloss, I got my dopeness t-shirt, I got the hoops, because the little Black girl should always have the hoops on. Because the other thing is guess what, y'all? He is a hip-hop artist, but y'all didn't know that. And he goes by the name of Shakespeare, and in a little while, he doesn't know this, but I'm gonna make him rap for us.
That's probably not gonna happen.
That is going to happen.
That's probably not gonna happen.
So good morning, Kevin Myles. Welcome to the show. Life Coaching Today Presents. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being on. Now, I've heard your stories a lot, but I think that how we get to living our whys, right? Individually, we all have something that triggers our purpose, right? And so you have a story about when you were a young man and your interaction and your family's interaction with the police. Can you kind of share that story and how that led you to your why?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always jokingly, I call this my origin story as a superhero.
Oh,
but
Lord.
I grew up in Cleveland, right? And it's a snow state, and we lived in a corner lot. So one day it'd been a lot of snow covering the ground, but
All that led you to
the police were out chasing somebody, and the person they were chasing ran through our yard. So I'm 9 years old at the time. My brother's 11. The police see the footprints, and they literally ran up to the house and they kicked the door in. Um, and broke it. So door is broken open, snow is blowing in the house. My brother and I are at the table. They start screaming, for whoever they think it is to come out of the house. So my father and my uncle come downstairs and they demand that they take all of the shoes out of the closet and pile them up in the middle of the kitchen floor. And they tell them that if the shoes are wet, they're taking them to jail. And they call them every name in the book. And, so we're terrified, my brother and I. And my father and my uncle put all the shoes in the floor. And when the shoes weren't wet, the police left. But they didn't really apologize. They didn't offer to fix the door. They didn't do anything. So in my mind, I was thinking that, that we could do something, that my dad would fight back and it would be, we'd get him for this. But what the visceral image that I took away is I can still, if I close my eyes, I can still visualize my father putting the shoes back in the closet. Now I'm 50, so this was a little while ago. But his feeling was, since nobody got hurt, it was okay. We were fine. But from that moment, when I was 9 years old, I have only had one singular ambition in life. And that is to make sure that when something terrible happens to people, that there should be a number that they should call.
Okay.
And somebody should be able to help them. And that the people who are in these organizations or groups or whoever you're going to call should know what they're doing. So that thread of not only being in a social justice space, but being knowledgeable enough about what was possible to be able to train and teach people, how do you stand up for yourself? How do you have a voice? Has literally been the only ambition I have ever had in my entire life.
Wow. Thank you for that story. Now, and every time you tell that story, I can't even imagine, right? Because as a young person watching violent acts, because that was an act of violence, and we don't need to get into the whole story of, or have a conversation about policing, because that's not what this is about. This is about what has actually triggered you to move through the space of social justice, right? So that people feel strong enough or have partners with them to assist them through this type of trauma, because it is trauma. I do have a question. Have you ever spoken to your father about that incident now that you were a grown man?
What's remarkable is a few years ago, I was giving a speech at some large gala, and my dad came, and I told the story in that speech. And afterwards, he came up to me and he told me that he remembered the incident, but he didn't have any idea it had affected me that profoundly, because my dad is from an earlier generation. Right. So he interpreted that event as, since nobody was physically injured, we were okay. But he didn't know that all of those images have been like viscerally burned into my head. That's like the first trauma that that burned into my psyche, and I've actually carried it ever since. But he remembered the incident, but he remembered it as, oh, it wasn't that bad because they didn't beat us, nothing terrible happened to us. So it's
interesting that trauma, and of course, no disrespect to our elders, because they lived during a different time frame, right? And during that time, it didn't seem as if trauma was actually imprinted on us, but they didn't recognize it, right? They had a different kind of skill base to disassociate and kind of go violence, physical violence, but mental violence and harm is just not something that goes together. And so I'm sure he was surprised to hear that as a little person, as I call young people, that you carried that with you. And that has actually brought you to a space of service, right? And I know you and I both live in a space of service, meaning that a lot of us are activists, meaning people who are actually serving on behalf of others and representing others, because sometimes people don't have voices, right? And that trauma, and I promise you, I'm sure everybody has a story. We just don't arrive to activism just because. I was asked to read something off of my bookshelf. So hear me out. Because I read a lot of books. And so one of my favorite books is One Day My Soul Just Opened Up by Iyanla Vanzant's sister girl, who we're going to keep in prayer because now she is without children, and that has been so traumatizing to her. And I want to read something that she says about service, a service affirmation. Okay. She says, "Let me remember, to serve is an act of love. My service is a divine gift to the world. When I do what I love, I am richly rewarded. Service and poverty do not coexist. Passion plus focus plus purpose equals service. When I give service, survival is guaranteed." I love that for so many reasons, including the passion plus focus plus purpose, because the why to me is the purpose. It's your purpose. And no matter what you do in every relationship, in every career choice that you've had, how you relate to other people, purpose and why are foundational in that. And so, Kevin, I have called you a transformational change chameleon. And the reason for that is because I know you have had different jobs. Can you talk about some of the jobs you've had and how your thread of service and purpose and why are all intertwined in that from the time you were 9 years old?
Yeah. From the time that I was 9. And when I got out of school, I joined the Army. So I had my job in the Army, which was flight operations. But that same thread on trying to make sure that everybody had a voice followed me into the Army. So we had some issues that arose because I spent my entire time in the service overseas. And I remember I'd gotten to Italy, and the troops in my unit had a bad habit of calling the Italians, who are our hosts, by some pejorative names that they had come up with. And, and it bothered me so much because it conflicted with my why. So we were at
question. I'm sorry, but when you say pejorative names, I need you to be clear, because that could be anything. What are they? What are we talking about here?
There was a term they used to call the Italian nationals. They would refer to them as Guidos.
Okay.
So we were just troops. We were soldiers. We were people. But everybody who lived in Italy, in the country where we were guests, they were Guidos. So we were in a company, basically meeting. We were inside of a theater, and the base commander was there, and all of these other people, and they were just throwing this term around. And here I am. I'm like a 19-year-old kid from Cleveland, and I stood up and basically kind of lectured everybody that, this is improper. This is wrong. These are our hosts. Why would you think that this was appropriate? And then I took it a step further, because that's what I do. I am an escalator. I said to all of you who look like me, you know better. How dare you come over here and play this game? So from there, my company commander created a position where he told me that my job would be to go around, since I wanted to be the spokesman for the unit, my job would be to go around and collect sentiment from the unit and figure out how everybody felt. I would monitor their morale, and then I would come in and report it to him on a weekly basis. And on a weekly basis, when I would walk into his office, he would tell me I was a liar, and he would holler and scream and yell at me and kick me out.
So your boss basically said to you, for all of us that aren't in the military,
Yeah.
go out and determine what it is that the troops are having conflicts with, the internal troops, right? Whether it's racism, whether they're feeling, they have all range of emotions, especially the racism aspect. You would collect all that information, and then he would come back and he would tell you that you're a liar.
Right.
Is that my understanding? Okay. Well, that happens. How many times have we been at work and told the truth, and then they're like, yeah, nah, that's not it. That's not it.
Yeah. So, when I got out of the military, I had a rough time getting started because I didn't want to accept any job that I felt exploited people. So I took a job at a company that sold thermal guard windows, like for homes. And we had an older customer who clearly couldn't make that type of a financial decision by themselves. And so, but I was pressured to go ahead and sell to them. So I quit that job on the first day. And I just kept trying to find my way. So I'd always maintain my day job. And then in my private life, I worked on my activism and worked on social justice things and worked on trying to, bring people along into a space where everybody was able to advocate and speak on their own behalf. But in that process, I've worked in the public sector, in the private sector, in the nonprofit sector, and I've always maintained my same through line. Whatever I'm doing, I want to make sure that we are not exploiting anybody.
Okay.
I want to make sure that everybody is treated fairly. And if I don't have the sense that that's the case, then I will challenge my employer or I will leave.
Okay.
And in that process, I've been able to create a life that's pretty varied. I've done a ton of different things. But, if my good getting up morning was tomorrow, that's one of those good old country phrases.
Yeah, I was like, good getting up. What
my good getting up morning. If my good getting up morning was tomorrow, I can comfortably say that everything that I've done and everywhere that I've been, I have tried to be a voice for the least of these.
Okay. Have you stumbled during that time? Have you failed during that time?
Yeah, because there have been times when opportunities have arisen where I could enrich myself personally.
Okay.
I could do things that were beneficial to me, but that were contrary to my why.
Okay.
And I'll give you one example. I was working at an airline for a while. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of social justice stuff on the side. But the airline was bought out by a company in Chicago. And at the time, I was living in Kansas. So I refused to move to Chicago because I wanted to do my social justice stuff because I felt like I was making an impact. But when I got to Chicago, because they let me commute, I would fly in, work there 2 days a week, and then fly back for the rest of the week in Kansas. The owners of the new company came and met with me.
Okay.
And they wanted me to run for office in Illinois. And they offered a fantastic financial offer. It was incredible. But they wanted me to move my family there, let go of all of my other stuff. They would work this plan, get me into the Illinois State Assembly. They laid it all out. They had me meet with their funders. Everything was right there. And I could have led a very, very comfortable, very public life with the backing of all of these very wealthy people who were wanting to push me forward. And I did something that most people thought I was crazy for, which is I quit my day job so I could focus on my volunteer work. And I just trusted that, if I'm living in my purpose, God will make a way.
So what I heard you say is that you could have potentially been the first Barack Obama, but you chose not to. Is that what I understand it to be?
That's actually pretty accurate, believe it or not.
You could have been
Believe
the
it or
first
not.
Barack in the tan suit causing problems.
Yeah, believe it or not, yes, this was a whole finance effort to get me to become a voice in the Illinois State Assembly by some very, very wealthy people.
And I just want to say this, everyone, if you are not aware that in the political space, people will approach individuals. They will pay to have you relocate. They will pay for your, political team. They will put all the pieces of the political puzzle together to ensure that you run for office. So with an agenda. And that's interesting that you say you didn't take that on because it did not align with your why and your purpose. And
Right.
so we need to pause and talk about that. Sometimes what your why is, what are you confronted with, they may not align. And it's okay that if we choose a different path, it's also okay if you go through that path, because sometimes you got to stumble, you got to fall, and then there's always a lesson that has to be learned as well in the misstep. But I do like the fact that you said that you had a day job and you were working your why through volunteer service, because guess what? Right now with inflation, I'm sure it is hard for people to figure out and determine, how is it that I'm going to serve? How am I going to be of service? And it can't be paid. Sometimes it's just not paid work, y'all. It's really not. And if you are a activist, all the activist friends I know, there's probably less than 5%. Nope. 0.5% of us that do this 100%. Like, we are getting paid to do this. Everybody else is working, has another job, another gig to do that. Oh, hey, Sandra. I see Sandra. Hey, Sandra. Good morning. I do have a question for you, because many people, some of the civil rights heroes, sheroes, that make civil rights possible, gave us our needs, all the amendments that did not focus on Black and brown people, people who have sacrificed in this space. And out of all of those people that did they ever tell you about or encourage you about your why, and to encourage you in your purpose? And tell us something that was told to you, so we can share that with the audience to say, even our elders know.
Yeah, I will tell you, like, one of the strongest pieces of advice that I was given, and when I say strongest, I mean most emphatically pounded into the table, that I've really lived with. One of our great civil rights veterans, C.T. Vivian, who passed not too many years ago. When I first moved here to Atlanta, and I had an opportunity to meet CT, I reached out to him and told him that, I really wanted the opportunity to sit down and learn from him. And when I told him that the first time, he gave me his address and told me to come get him so we could go get something to eat.
Okay. Where'd y'all eat?
We went to Paschal's.
Okay.
So I went and picked him up and I took him to Paschal's, and we ended up doing that a few times, right? And CT was adamant that what we really needed to do was we needed to train people. Okay. And he said, because in the 60s, they weren't guessing. They knew what they were doing. And he was telling me about all the trainings he had sat through with Diane Nash, and he was giving me all of the names of these civil rights luminaries, and how they would drill on things and train on things. And they understood, like, if you do these things, you can impact the system in this kind of way. He told me about the Highlander Folk School and all of those things. And he was saying that he felt like we were missing that, right? That people were doing things because they felt right, but we needed to focus on making sure people understood how this stuff works, because it's not just art. Some of it is science.
Right.
And so that became like a primary driving focus for me, is to really kind of understand how this stuff is supposed to work, and then drilling down on how you actually make that stuff happen. Another was Reverend Dr. Joseph Lowry, who, when Joseph Lowry had his organization, he had a coalition that he managed, and they met every Tuesday for years when I first got here to Atlanta. So I would go to those meetings, and then after those meetings, we would all go to Busy Bees Cafe over by Morehouse. And shout out to Busy Bees Cafe, because they just made the Michelin list.
And spirit word. I know, right? Fried
Right.
chicken, collard greens, okra is like at the top of the top. Everybody needs to come through. Come through.
And Reverend Dr. Lowry always wanted to go to Busy Bees, because Busy Bees has neck bones on the menu, and he would order neck bones every Tuesday. And he would just talk about the movement, and helping me to really kind of get a grounding and an understanding that the movement isn't about having a big, large rally, or, you know, how many followers you have or how many likes you get. But the movement is the small room conversations that you have to help people make sense of their own daily existence and help them navigate the obstacles that stand in their way of living the lives that they want. So those, like I say, those are treasured memories of mine that I carry with me every day.
I love those stories, because guess what? Life is strategy. Even though we don't think about it, life is really strategy. And when you are clear, or trying to wipe off the cloudiness on the window of what's called your life, you can become clearer in the space of your why and your purpose. And like I said, this runs the gamut. It is in your personal life, it is in your business life, it is in your dream life, because I think we should always be dreaming about the next thing, what it is that we want to do. But the why also includes, like reflection on our behaviors. And so to have them give you that concept of, really sit down, think about it, make sure that it is strategic, it is concrete in what it is that you're doing, like it's goal setting, right? Why do we need to do this? How do we need to do this? And so for me, like my goals, I've got 13 things, like I said. I have got a list of classes that are going on my schedule for the next 2 months to get a certification, right? I have to put it down. And I know my why. It is imperative and important to be well-versed in child welfare. So that way, because that is something that we serve others in, right? And so I want to walk us into, you have that awesome banner. I still don't have my banner yet that says community first. Yeah, all on the wrong side of the room. Community first, because I'm a founder and I'm the boss of you. So I don't know exactly what my title is in this space, but we also boss of you, and we also work as what we call movement consultants. Can you give us a kind of a framework of what that is, how you arrived there, as we are wrapping up and closing?
I will say with Community First and the work that we do, and when I say we, I'm speaking of you, just even for your listeners who may not know that this is like an area where you have a lot of skin in the game. We do a lot of work in the areas of child welfare, foster care. We are moving into the areas of juvenile justice, because these are, when you think about that why of being a voice for people who really are in need of assistance, and helping people be in a position to help themselves. Young people and families who are dealing with foster care and dealing with child welfare issues really are a very vulnerable population.
Yes.
A lot of those families really don't have a lot of protections. And because there's so many stigmas involved in being involved with child welfare, they're not necessarily able to come out, identify themselves, and ask for help. These are families who a lot of times are struggling with some of the most complex and traumatic events that you can imagine, but they don't feel empowered to go out and ask for help. They just kind of suffer through it. And the more I became aware of those realities, um, the more I felt it was necessary to wade into that space and use whatever time and talents I had to be of service. And in that process, your host, Kiddada Grey, has come on board in our organization, Community First. And that's something that we spend a lot of time, effort, and energy. And we travel the country working on these issues, largely with child welfare systems. And we're doing focus groups now with communities to try to get, the type information that we need to come up with reformative practices and change policy and make sure that the systems are more responsive to the actual needs of these families, not just the kids who go into foster care, but that the families get the support that they need so that they can become happy, healthy, and whole families. To make sure that I got that right. Okay.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I'm smiling because that is my why, right? I actually have two whys. One is that, of course, I have talked about that I have seen violence, I'm not going to say it was privy to violence, but I have been privy to violence. In my own life, I have seen people traumatized in a way that they did not have a voice. So from way, way, way back in my 48 years of life, I have always known, but did not know how I wanted to be an activist for others. And not even before I got to an activist, just an advocate, right? And my journey really started with babies, little people, the children, and been doing that since I was in college, out of college in 1997. And I've kind of, my journey is coming back because actually my background is in IT and business consulting, right? So it has nothing to do with the activist space until around 2018-ish, but I was actually in the educational advocacy world, which that's how I started to make a name for myself. And then that has kind of spun out to being a coach. I call myself a conflict coach, of course, because I have stop it, people, stop it. Because I have a background in conflict management, conflict resolution. I actually love conflict. Why? Because we can get to resolution. We can figure out the whys and change our behaviors. And I have joined on with Community First. What Kevin did not say is that we also deal in the space of educational advocacy, because guess what? Parents and children need voices too. And I'm just going to say it. Education in the United States has been raggedy since God knows when. And it's just getting worse. So we are in that space. But my other why is making sure that everyone is happy, healthy, whole. That is a why for me that I am trying to live through, even in the space of my own life. That is relevant and prevalent. And so we are getting ready to close. I am going to give Kevin Myles the floor, and he does talk a lot, y'all. So what is your goal? What do you want people to think about in terms of their why? Hit us with that. Let us know.
Yeah. If I left here tomorrow, and for those of you who know me, and a lot of people know me, for those of you who know me, I recently had a really concerning kind of health scare. If I had to, my good getting up morning was tomorrow. Again, I get you with those phrases. I do want to be able to look back on my life and know that, the time that I spent here was meaningful. the things that I did really did help people. And it's never too late to get started with that. It doesn't have to be some great big dramatic project. You don't have to lead some gigantic campaign, but can you integrate just something, just one thing at a time that can make life easier for somebody else? If there's some struggle that you faced and you made it to the other side of it, can you do something to help somebody else who is going through that same struggle, no matter how big or how small? And that has been the source of my joy throughout my life. Just trying to be in that space and be that kind of help to somebody.
I love it. Thank you for that little nugget, because that is leaving a legacy of good. Don't be out here harming people. If that is your agenda, I need you to go sit down somewhere and start all over again, because that is not why you want to be in the history books for harm. This is Kiddada Grey with Live Coaching Today Presents with Kevin Myles, talking about transformational
Who is the boss
change.
Who is the boss of Kiddada, by the way?
Here we go. And living your why, living your why. We are going to wrap. Thank you for joining me this morning. You have an action item. Try to write down 13 things that we are working towards in 2024. Let's talk about the whys. And I promise you, this is round 2. This is episode 2, and we are working out the kinks and the bugs and the glowing up and the lighting and all the stuff that comes with it. Y'all, it's a whole mood over here every Thursday morning, but more to come. More to come. And look for a link if you want to be on the show and share your exciting story. Are you doing fascinating things? I have people on my page who have created products that actually, some of us aren't supposed to be in those lanes, but let's live today with joy and happy, healthy, whole. We are going to wrap. Peace, y'all. Time for breakfast for some of us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Life Coaching Today Presents, hosted by Kiddada Grey and produced by Aruba Saad. Our mission at Life Coaching Today is to empower your health, business, community, and life. Check us out at lifecoachingtoday.com. Everyone here at the True Awesome Network would like to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, and spread awesome.